May 1st, 2025, meeting for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. We have the attendance taken care of. Need to approve the February 6th meeting minutes. Hopefully you all had a chance to review that. If you have your binders, they are in there.
I make the motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented from February 6th.
Second that?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next one. Approve the meeting minutes from the April 10th, 2025 special meeting.
I make the motion to approve the April 10th meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and one thing you'll notice for those online that we have here is awesome new binders where all of our information will be kept and so forth. So if you join us in person, we will have these for you to review as well and to have. And we found a way to mark them as yours. So if you want to make little notes and so forth, absolutely can. Definitely thanks to county staff for putting that together. I believe that was specifically Amanda, so thank you.
Very nice work, Amanda.
Yeah.
They're very fancy.
All right, moving on, new business. So solid waste, I'm sure you guys have seen the email. Solid waste is no longer under public health, but now under public works. We have Ken Later from Public Works. He's the Public Works Director. So I just want to welcome you to SWAC. If you have anything you want to say or anything like that, now's your opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I want to make sure you guys could hear me okay first off.
Yeah.
Great. Those binders do look pretty fancy from my vantage here. I was planning to be there in person tonight, but I've got a bad head cold. I thought I would keep that to myself. And so I'm just going to be with you briefly. I did want to introduce myself. I'm the Public Works Director over here at the county. We're very excited about the transition and taking on the solid waste operations and education and outreach teams. You'll see quite a bit more of me involved in all of our different activities. The transition period is going to take a little bit for us to get all the pieces in place, but we have a plan for all those elements. And as of today, it's official for sure, as of the last couple of weeks, that solid waste is part of Public Works. But we still have a lot of budget and coding and behind the scenes things to work on. So any questions that you might have for me along the way, I encourage you to reach out. Sarah and Amanda have my information and can put you in touch with me directly. I'd be happy to meet with any of you individually as well if you have questions for me about Public Works. So with that, if you have any questions for me, otherwise I'll be quiet. I'll probably stay for a couple of minutes and then bounce off and maybe call it an early night. So it's nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well, Ken. So thanks for joining us. Excited to fall under Public Works now and look forward to meeting you in person at some point.
Yeah, likewise.
Ken, I have a question.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
What are some of the benefits of moving from, I guess, I'm sure you guys have discussed at staff level, but I haven't really heard it. So tell me, why is it a great idea to be moving to Public Works to solid waste?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I appreciate that. Traditionally, solid waste actually was part of Public Works back before we kind of took a venture into a Department of Environmental Services for a few years, and then we split that apart. And that's when solid waste got spun off into public health. I'm not sure what decisions led ultimately to positioning solid waste in public health. But I will say, if you look around the state of Washington, we have 39 counties. Only 2 of them don't have the solid waste housed within public works activities or departments. So It's a pretty standard method if you just look at how all of the counties are doing it. That doesn't make it a good reason, but I will say Public Works, we're very familiar with enterprise funds such as solid waste. We have the Clean Water Program within Public Works, which is similar in that nature. But we also have the infrastructure that's really designed to support services and I would say more almost utility-based services around the county. So um, I see it as a pretty natural fit. I didn't ask for it because we've got plenty going on in Public Works all the time. But I think when Kathleen came to me with the suggestion and recommendation, it was a natural fit. And I'm happy to talk about some of the individual pieces of that, but just in general, we do have a support structure that supports several capital plans, capital facilities planning over long periods of time. We do capital forecasting for each of our major like transportation, parks, as well as clean water over 6-year periods of time. We also hold fleet for the county, so we forecast and model all of our fleet vehicles now out over a 20-year life cycle. So it's kind of a familiar model and engine, and I think it's going to provide more efficiencies as far as how we do business in Public Works versus Public Health has a very different focus, which is absolutely necessary, but not necessarily focused on this type of service for the community. I will say, as far as compliance, that will stay with Public Health, so that's not moving, and I think it also helps to have that separation between our operations work and what Public Health would do to make sure that we're compliant in our solid waste activities.
Thanks.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question for Ken. I just was curious, since we haven't met yet. Ken, if you don't mind me asking, whereabouts are you from, and what connection do you have with Clark County?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Actually, I ran into you the other day up in council, but
yeah, that's right.
I had a little more hair than. No, I'm kidding. It all fell out a long time ago. So thanks for asking. I actually grew up in Oregon, although my dad, most of my life, my dad has lived in Vancouver. He's in Ridgefield now. So I spent quite a bit of my time up here visiting him. I moved to Vancouver in 2000, and I started working for the county in 2002, if you can believe that. So I started out as an engineering tech in the GIS, doing GIS work for Clean Water, and then became an engineer and an engineering manager, and then the county engineer, and
Nice.
now I'm the director. So I guess it's one of those stories. But
Ken, I want to know, what's happening here, because I thought the county only hired people that had no clue who we were and where we came from. Yeah.
I have no comment on that, Joe, but
Yeah, like you, no comment. I have no comment. Yeah.
I have no comment. Yeah, I will say it's been I've been the director now for just almost coming up on 2.5 years. It's been a lot of hard work, but I think we've really stabilized Public Works. The trajectory is good. I think our activities are improving. But we have a lot going on, with the different divisions within Public Works. I'm just really proud of our staff, and I think in working with Sarah and Joelle already, and I've met everybody on the teams, I think they're going to fit right in with the Public Works family, and we're excited about that. Joe liked that answer so well, he turned his camera off, I think. So
He's out. He's pleased him. He's out of here. I hope he's back.
I like that answer so much. I turned my camera off so I can do things without you guys seeing.
So I hope that gives you a little bit of background, Joe.
No, that's great. No,
No.
I think, Ken, you and I are in the same boat as God darn, I can't tell you how many. Okay, of course, you may know this. I used to be the site manager at the Heritage Farm, and of course, I would follow, who we had as a, Public Works director, and it's like, God darn it, where'd you go find this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have no plans for commercial build outs at Heritage Farm, just to settle anybody's concerns about that. So,
Yep, exactly.
yeah. Yeah. Any other questions that people have for me?
I think we're good. Thanks so much, Ken.
Well,
Thanks,
if you
Ken.
don't mind, I'll probably just be a fly on the wall for a few more minutes, and then I think I'm going to retire and call it a day. But thank you
Yeah.
for having me tonight. I look forward to seeing you in person on our next go around.
Absolutely. Get some rest and get better.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on to program updates. First off is solid waste and recycling finance.
So Jeff was unable to attend this evening. It was late breaking news as of just a moment ago. So
Okay,
we'll have to postpone the finance update for.
all right. So we will postpone the finance update. Solid waste enforcement, Chuck. Chuck, you there?
I see his
I
name.
see his name too.
The dreaded unmute. I've got my camera on. I'm right here. I'm right here. So
We should-
hello.
There you go.
As I was saying, and I'll talk slower this time. But anyway, hi to everyone. Chuck Harmon, Program Manager at Clark County Public Health for the Solid Waste Enforcement. I know I've met some of you. Obviously, I've met all of the solid waste team because they used to work over here with us. And with me and attending tonight is Hannah Pludow, who's here with us, and she's part of our solid waste enforcement group. So basically, I know I think I've met most of you, or you've seen me online at some of the prior meetings. We're responsible for enforcing the solid waste enforcement code. We do that under a grant from Department of Ecology. I'll just mention this. This is the last time I'll mention this. I think most folks know for a long time we had an inspector, Melissa Sutton, who had been here doing it for a very long time, was very good at it, and she left to go elsewhere last fall in September. And so both Hannah and Jamie Searcy were assigned to cover solid waste enforcement responsibilities for us. That because of it was kind of a sudden thing, both Hannah and Jamie quickly pivoted to training and working with ecology to get up to speed. And there was kind of a gap in the inspections, but last quarter we got going again and are continuing to catch up and get to all the facilities that we haven't visited yet, and some facilities we visit more than once by the end of this final quarter. But and I think we've submitted a report in the past. I don't know, Amanda, if we said, I know you wanted us to reformat it, and I don't know if you got that, but we can still get that to you. But right now I don't have all the numbers, but we are catching back up, and we are getting everything done. I will just say from a program perspective, both Hannah and Jamie are working towards their MOLO certification for being able to inspect landfills. We've been able to accomplish that primarily through working with other certified MOLO persons, primarily from ecology. And I think overall the inspections are going really well. And Hannah, chime in. I've been out on some of them, but not all of them. I think the group, again, I think the ongoing, good management by the contractors and the ops team that oversees all that work, and the legacy work of all the good inspections that were done in the past have paid off. We're not seeing a lot of major issues, at least recently in the more recent inspections. Let's see, I think there was one other thing I was going to mention, but anyway, that's all I have, unless there's any questions for us. All right.
Just glad you guys get back up to speed and getting those inspections done.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Chuck. Solid waste operations. Joelle is not able to join us tonight, so Sarah's going to give the update.
And I just have one brief update on Joelle's behalf in her absence, and that is that we are on the edge of our seats awaiting the completion of the solid waste management plans courtesy review by Department of Ecology, and that should be back to us by May 9th at the latest. And so thank you all for your ongoing participation in that process, and that's our operations update.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for those additional meetings we had. We're glad to get it through and moving on and so forth, and not needing to start over from scratch. All right, solid waste education and outreach.
Well, hello again. Sarah Kern, Solid Waste Education and Outreach Program Manager. I do have some updates to share with you all about some campaigns that we've been working on. We are in the midst of our very, very busy outreach season in the spring. The team is out attending a lot of events and participating in tabling and hosting workshops. And so I wanted to share some of the numbers with you all today about that engagement that's happened. So since our last SWAC meeting, we had over 30 events that we attended and or hosted ourselves, and engaged with more than 2,000 residents out in the community at those events. And so for our own workshops, those are our composter, recycler, learn how to compost trainings, as well as Food Waste Prevention Week that was held last month. We had 2 banner events hosted by Camille Shelton, our Green Neighbors Outreach Program lead. So she hosted a trivia night that had 53 participants, and which is a great turnout for an event that we're kind of working on, and as well as, and then it was back to back. She kind of had a back-to-back week that week and hosted a workshop on scrappy cooking, which is how to prevent waste by using leftovers. And there were 76 attendees at that event, which is a record. And so we're really excited because it means that our messaging is resonating with the community, and we're doing the right level of marketing to attract people to join us for those events. And we also recently graduated a class of composter recycler volunteers. And so we have a newly minted group that are educated to go out in the community and spread the word about our programming and our messaging to prevent waste and compost and recycle correctly. Other big updates. So on our green business, on our commercial side, we announced via email our green award winners for 2025. And so I wanted to share those winners with you all as SWAC members for the different categories. So we have Peace Health, which was a winner for kind of embarking on an eco-friendly journey for their reusables and their waste reduction. Simply Time Catering was awarded for their long-term commitment to sustainability. And then a Trailblazer Award went to TSMC Washington for a lot of their waste reduction programs. And then our Community Champion Award went to Evergreen Habitat for Humanity Store.
Yes.
And so all of those organizations, one of the reasons that we have this program and we want to elevate the stories of these organizations is because it helps us when businesses are sharing with their peers about their best practices and all the strategies that they've used to make improvements and reduce waste. And so those are all kind of our noteworthy winners, and we're hosting a celebration that I'd love to invite you all to attend. It will be during a lunch hour on Thursday, May 29th at Fourth Plain Community Commons.
We make sure to send that out to everyone.
Yes. And those are the highlights. I won't go into all of the details, but the education and outreach team has been out in the field quite a bit, doing a lot of fabulous work, engaging the community.
Great job. Thank you and your team for all the efforts and so forth. All right, City of Vancouver, Julie.
Hi, well, let me turn my camera on. So
Well,
Just to let you know, yeah, Julie didn't get a deeper voice, so I'm actually giving Julie a break for the evening for all the hard work she's been doing the last 3 years and stepping up to give the updates. One of the first things I want to talk about is just an unfortunate situation, which is this week the Washington Service Corps advised us to pause all service with our AmeriCorps members. They're here at the city, and I think this impacts the entire country. We're looking for alternatives and what we can do to support that staff. They have been a huge part of our team. Some of you may know Kristen, but she is really an integral part of our team. And so we're trying to figure out what those solutions are. And then this also impacted 4 other members within our city. So I just wanted to start with that. The next 2 updates are programs that Kristen worked on. Those have not been affected yet, but we're still monitoring that. The first is Recycle You. And we have a Recycling 101 coming up on May 14th. We have a Recycling 101 coming up on June 25th. And then a Recycling 201 coming up on July 10th. And so we will go ahead and supply some links and everything that can get added to the notes for this meeting if anybody's interested. And then, of course, Litter Stewards, which has been a very popular program given all the litter around Clark County and the city. And so this is a volunteer-led effort. And so there's a link that we'll provide for that as well. We're going to continue to keep trying to move these forward, but Kristen was a real crucial part in the success of those. Just a quick update, the first year of reporting to Ecology on our organics material diverted was required and submitted, as well as trying to meet the requirements of keeping track of how much compost is purchased through the procurement process. So for next steps, we're going to really try and update our procurement rules to match up along with those requirements and continue to track as well as share that data with other city groups that are monitoring sustainability and kind of the impact that our program has on the environment. Monday, if any of you are paying attention to our council meeting, Liz and Julie will be bringing a 5-year yard debris contract with McFarland Bark to council. This is one of what will be 5 contracts that support our spring and fall coupon program for yard debris. And so we're really excited to have them back in the program. They were either unable or didn't participate in the procurement last time around, and they were a crucial part of the program. So we're happy to be having that contract signed. The next thing to mention is, if anybody has been paying attention, the Recycling Reform Act has passed both the House and the Senate, is waiting for the governor's signature. This is a big deal. It will be a major change in the way that the state manages recycling material, and so we'll be following that closely. This will definitely have an impact on our recycling within the county and the city. And so not only are we excited, but realize there's a lot of work to happen with that implementation, which brings me to the next conversation, which is our MRF negotiations with CRC. Some of you might know that the Master Services Agreement required that both the city, the county, and CRC enter good faith negotiations to site a new MRF facility and also develop a long-term contract for those services. And so we began negotiations in February and continued. Unfortunately, those negotiations have stopped, and we're considering our next options for what we will want to do. There will be another link that will be provided that hopefully can make the update. Julie and I were able to go to council last Monday and give them an update. And so that link will be provided, and hopefully we will have a chance to update you again soon on what the next steps are with that process. And Derek, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but we're really excited. We've got an insert with the Waste Connections billing for June that really promotes organics and offers a discount with Dirt Huggers. This is really important to make people aware of where their compost is going, how it's processed, and how it's actually beneficial for use. So it really kind of completes that circle. The last update's pretty quick. Just I think we mentioned that our neighborhood cleanups have started again, and so we're kind of in full swing. There's 23 of those events scheduled this year. They've been happening every year for quite some time, and it's been great, especially for me, to get out and meet some of the neighbors and the neighborhoods for the first time. So that's been really great. The Main Street Promise is still going on. We also mentioned that, and so if you've been down Main Street in Vancouver, you've probably seen that. Our solid waste team is really crucial with coordinating with Waste Connections and making sure that businesses' services are not disrupted. And so we're really excited about all the planning that has gone into this project and actually how it has really minimized the impacts to businesses and restaurants. And then lastly, not quite as big as solid waste moving to Public Works, but our Public Works Director, Steve Worley, announced his retirement. And so this month will be his last month with the city of Vancouver. Steve Wall, who was brought on as the deputy director and originally came from Camas. So you may know Steve Wall will be taking over that position in interim. It shouldn't impact anything, but it's just more kind of an FYI for some changes within our department. And I think that's it.
So, Will, going back to the Main Street Promise, and not to put you on the spot, but put you on the spot. If you don't have an answer, that's completely fine. But,
Put me on the spot.
kind of the heart of where I work as well. Has the city gathered any specific data from the businesses to say that there's just been minimal impact to them?
So in hard data, I don't believe so. And I can check on that to loop back. I think when I say it's been successful, it's really been the communication. That really there was a very deliberate effort to reach out to the businesses, knowing that there was a lot of potential impact that could happen when you limit the access. And so I think that from what I've heard and been experiencing with updates is that for the most part, businesses feel very good about that communication. They feel very good about how it's handled. And so as far as disruptions to actual waste service, there haven't been any disruptions. What we don't know is, our business counts down or things like that. And I don't know if those are being tracked or not.
Okay. I know from the city standpoint, Julie Arnaz has done a phenomenal job with the communication and kind of spearheading this whole project. But it's just hard for me to believe that, those businesses need to make money to stay open, and that's not having a massive impact on their ability to do that. So are we going to see a massive turnover because businesses can't keep their doors open through this kind of what we saw through the COVID situation?
Yeah, and I think what you're expressing was everyone's concern. Nobody wants to have this beautiful street with a bunch of for lease signs, right? And so the real thing was how do we develop a program that's going to support those businesses? Not that I wouldn't have missed something, but so far I haven't heard of any major failures. I think people kind of were able to build it into their business model, knowing that it was coming. I think we've really tried to promote buildings, bring people or businesses and bring people and foot traffic there to supplement the auto traffic disruptions, right?
Absolutely. Well, auto traffic, but then also sometimes foot traffic as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I the other night I went to Amaro's table and you hop around a few barricades to get there and everything, but it was packed, so I was happy.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Will or for the city? All right, moving on to Derek with Waste Connections.
Hello, sorry, I had some technology issue earlier, so I hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you.
Great, okay. And my camera on my phone is pointing at the ceiling, so I'll just leave that off for right now. So I think most of the rest of the staff already hit on a lot of the things on my list. A couple of notes. We just finished up the month of April, obviously, and we had a record self-haul for garbage in the month of April, which is not typically our busiest month of the year. Oftentimes that would be August. So last August, we had 14,929 tons of inbound self-haul garbage. This April, we had 14,952 tons. So, which is an 8% increase over last April. And then, like I said, an all-time high. So we're expecting a pretty robust set of activity in business this summer. The good news is it was a slight decline from the peak of total customers. So we're seeing a little bit heavier per customer amount coming in, which means we're probably getting more commercial accounts coming in. That helps on the traffic side, but it's going to be a busy year at the transfer stations. We've already got flaggers out at both sites trying to guide traffic in and avoid any kind of significant issues. We did have a flagger get hit by somebody Monday of this week, so it's a bit chaotic. Excuse me. Commodities are still moving quite well. I think we talked about it a little bit here and there, but tariffs haven't really impacted that. Even though we do ship some of the material to Canada, we're still having a normal flow of material and able to move everything at this point. A couple of post-collection items. So CTR, we are the property behind CTR. I think we talked about this before. Is an old C&D landfill. It has some gas pockets in it that need to be alleviated before we can do any development there. So we're in the process of we've applied for a permit to install a gas mitigation system, and we're hoping to get that installed by late summer. And get that going so that we can move forward with other plans to develop that property to help with some of the traffic issues at CTR. Hog fuel. So all of the wood waste that we reclaim from the tip floors, along with some of the urban wood that we collect on routes, is ground up and shipped off as a heat source for local mills. And we are just due to dynamics of the industry, of the paper industry, and conversions to natural gas, there's limited numbers of mills that accept the material anymore. And we're down to one facility right now that's accepting it in Longview. And so we are seeing a pretty significant increase in our pile of hog fuel. And the challenge with that, of course, is if you grind it, it catches fire. So you can't really grind it to reduce the volume of it. You just have to do it in large quantities of this bulk wood. But that obviously gets in the way of everything else we do at the transfer station. So we're looking at some options to move that to potentially a composting facility to alleviate some of the short-term issues we're having. This is the high season for green waste, so that's causing some challenges for us. The couple of things that we talked about, the Senate bill that passed, we're paying attention to Oregon's new RMA system that goes online in July. That is going to increase services throughout the state of Oregon and increase the amount of commingle that's being collected in the state. And Southwest Washington, due to our proximity to the Portland area where all the bulk of the Oregon MRFs are, and glass processing facilities, that it could potentially have some impacts on us just pushing more material into the area. So, for instance, if small communities throughout the state of Oregon that had not previously been collecting glass begin to bring glass into the Portland area and inundate our glass processor, it could present some challenges down the road. We just don't know exactly where that's going. So we're keeping an eye on that. The last thing I would say is education and outreach. We are hiring a new education and outreach manager, and that person should be hopefully hired by the end of the month of May. And that'll be nice to get that position filled for us. Any questions?
Oh, all right. Thanks, Eric.
Perfect. Yes.
All right, now moving on to presentation, North County Recycling Transfer Station Siting Study, Parametrics.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Carl Lefnagel with Parametrics. I came before the committee here, I think on the 6th of February. And I think this was the same subject that we talked about then, but at that point, I'm not even sure we were quite under contract at that point. But since that time, we are fully under contract for the North County recycling and transfer station siting. And we're well underway. We had our kickoff meeting with the county on the 26th of February. So essentially, we're 2 months into real work. And I'd say we're actually quite far ahead of schedule, which is great. Things have been going rather smoothly. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint here if I can get to it. Just give me a moment. This looks like it here, probably. Yeah, let me start this. Hopefully, everybody see that?
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see that in the room there and elsewhere. Again, we really got started towards the end of February. We're actually rolling up our sleeves and getting into the nitty gritty of the work. And I just want to review with you, and maybe we talked about this when we were here the last time, but bear with me. And I realize this is a schedule. You probably can't see a lot of the detail in it at the scale that you're seeing it. But this is the overall project schedule that we submitted really with our proposal and then as part of our initial contract. And it shows that this work is projected to extend almost 4 years. It's 46 months on the schedule. It's the black line near the top. And the work is broken into 4 phases. And we're obviously in the first phase now, the yellow phase or gold. And we're essentially a couple months into it. And this phase covers the first 5 tasks, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. That's where the current work is all embedded. And we've really only gotten going on the first 4 of the 5 tasks. But we're well into it. And I'd say, again, we're ahead of schedule. And I can tell you that we are pushing hard to actually far improve on this preliminary schedule that was developed before we really got underway. So this was I wouldn't call it a pessimistic schedule, but it was meant to be kind of a conservative schedule. So we'd like to get through this process quicker. There are certain external factors that may slow us down that we have no control over, but we'll deal with those in the future. And I do expect we'll be back before this committee on a regular basis, giving you regular updates over the next several years on this project. This is a more complicated schedule that is fine-tuned in, and I'm not going to go through all this. But we're actually managing our work to this schedule here, which is a much more workable schedule for us. And we actually use a 4-week look ahead schedule and did in addition to this to keep our team and the county folks all clued in as to what's going on in the immediate future. So the work is broken into, I'm just going to go back for a minute. It's the work is actually broken into 13 tasks. So we're currently again in phase 1 doing tasks 1 through 5. 5 hasn't started yet. And task 13 is our project management task, and we're actually obviously managing the work. So that task is started, and there's some other specific things in that task, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, just to keep you briefed. All the other tasks between, starting with 6 through 11 are, 2 through 12 are not underway at this point. And please feel free to stop me at any point as I'm talking if you have questions about any of this. Before I talk about where we're at in the work, which is the main purpose of me being here today, I just wanted to tell you that we've done many transfer station siting projects for facilities like this, fairly complex, large transfer stations. And we are always guided by what in my experience, are 3 guiding principles. First is that transfer stations are essential public facilities, and they actually are by definition in the Clark County Code. But what that really means is that we are looking for a site for a facility that will be accessible and stay in operation under every possible conceivable condition. Storms, fires, seismic events, floods, all of that. It is critical that these facilities, just like a hospital or a fire station, whatever, be accessible and fully functioning during and immediately after those sorts of events. And that has an important impact on how we site facilities because they need to be accessible, for example. The second guiding principle is that these are forever facilities. It's hard to conceive that our society won't will get to a point where we don't need transfer facilities and the other services that these stations provide. We certainly hope that we continue to make good progress on recycling and so forth, but there's always going to be waste, and we have to assume that's the case. And therefore, we always call these forever facilities. And when we site things, we don't take a short-term view. We take a very long-term view. We expect this station to be here in Clark County, serving Clark County for more than 100 years, literally forever. Now, it's possible that it would go away or be repurposed somehow, but for planning purposes, we are using at least a 60-year time horizon in sizing the facility. And we understand that it'll be here much longer than that. And history shows that transfer stations are, in fact, long-lived facilities. And therefore, when we're not doing the design end of the siting, but we conceive of the facility components as having to be very robust, easy to maintain, and that they need to be there and last forever. We don't want to be constantly spending a lot of money on maintenance because we went too thin on what we were doing in planning the facilities. And the third underlying or guiding principle is that transfer stations need to be good neighbors, and that has a big effect on where we site them, how convenient they are to the public that uses them, and the other commercial customers that go there. And we don't want these facilities to be nuisances to people in the general area, but we do want them to be accessible. And this has often translated not just into, but really during the design stage, into designing and constructing facilities that I'll say are handsome, that are not kind of in just an industrial looking facility. We tend to design these facilities to match the environment that they're in. So if we're out in a rural area, we might try to flavor them as more of an agricultural look in the building structures. But generally, these are designed to be really good looking facilities. Not that the facilities that are currently in the county that Derek takes care of for you aren't good looking facilities, but they're from a much earlier generation. And that's what transfer stations look like that were designed back in the late 80s or in the 90s. But nowadays they look a lot better, I have to say. So those are our underlying principles. I'm just going to run through where we're at in the different tasks so you have a sense of what we're doing and how far along we are. Task one is this data collection and analysis. There's a great deal of information we have to gather about the usage of the waste tonnages, the customer counts, the growth in the county, and all of the other underlying information about the search area that we're looking in for this facility. So there's a lot of data to gather, a lot of background information that we have to pull together from codes, from the various utility providers in the county. There's just a wealth of information as part of this task one. We actually produce a draft and eventually it's a final data summary and evaluation report. And we actually just submitted a first draft of that 2 days ago to the county for a review. But it's one of these reports that's never done. We'll be gathering data 2 years from now. We'll still probably be having data trickle in that's appropriate to where we're at in the work. There's a lot of GIS mapping. We're working closely with the county's GIS folks, and we've pretty much finished or close to being finished with our base GIS map for the service area that we're looking in. And again, the overall data collection is probably 80% complete. There's a lot of traffic information we have to collect for the search area. We're probably about 50% complete with that, and we can only go so far because until we identify the initial slate of sites, then and only then can we hone in on those specific site areas and really focus in on what's going on traffic wise and road condition wise in the areas immediately around and those and farther afield that service those sites. That's task one. Task two is the facility programming, which means what does this facility have to include? What are all the functionalities and other features that have to be at this facility? And we do that by developing a facility program, which is quite a complex document. We are about 95% complete. We've actually submitted that. We're probably on version 5 now. It's submitting that to the county. We've gotten good feedback. And I'd say we're near complete with having a very good written program that says this is what this facility is going to need in terms of functions and other specifics about the facility. And in conjunction with that, we then develop a companion non-site specific site plan, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. And we're about 95% complete with that. We've already submitted once and gotten some feedback from the county. This is what the plan is. I sometimes call these cartoons because they're very conceptual. They're non-site specific. So this is just on a theoretical site using the information in the facility program and some other information that we pull from our search criteria that we're going to talk about under the next task. So we actually tried to place all these facilities in an ideal situation on a theoretical site. The utility of this is not, I mean, this is fine, but there isn't going to be a site that looks like this. So when we get to identifying sites that we're going to evaluate, we're then going to take this nice hypothetical layout and try to fit it to the sites that we have under consideration. And we're going to see there are going to be many compromises for sites that have to be made to accommodate this. So this is an idealized location or arrangement. You can see on a site like this, we have a lot of traffic queuing lanes because of the amount of traffic that we have projected forward at least 60 years that will be coming to this facility. And during busy times, they tend to back up just like they do now at the current stations at busy times. So that's why you see so much traffic lane in here. And this sort of arrangement that you see is very typical now of a modern transfer station layout. Feel free to ask questions about this, so we can come back after I finish my presentation if you want to actually talk about anything that you see here. But again, this is very conceptual in nature. And I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but we show the offsite road conditions. In other words, in the frontage road near the bottom, that's the public right-of-way that we're going to site along. And we are expecting to have to do a fair amount of traffic improvements along that roadway to create the acceleration, deceleration, the stacking and turning lanes that are needed for the two main entrance areas. On the right is the transfer trailer entrance. On the left is the customer entrances. So there's quite a lot of off-site work that we anticipate in an ideal situation we'll be able to make. So that's task 2. Task 3 is development of the siting criteria. This is the real nuts and bolts of what we're going to be doing when we get into the site evaluation process. So we start by developing a very comprehensive list of siting criteria that is very much guided by what's in the current draft comprehensive solid waste management plan. There's an appendix in that plan that specifically enumerates an idealized list of siting criteria for solid waste facilities. We've very much are in alignment with that, although I have to say we've elaborated in more depth than that particular list includes. We've submitted this siting criteria development memo, which is, I think it's 14 pages long, already to the county a number of times. I think we're on version 4, perhaps. We intend to start briefing interested parties on the contents of these various documents soon. And I'll talk about that in a minute when we get to task 13. We're not ready to talk with you all about it yet, but you're certainly one of the what we call the interested parties. Task 4, the fourth and final task that's currently underway, is our public involvement, public outreach and coordination task. We've created a public involvement plan that's been created in draft form. It's been submitted to the county. They've reviewed it, and we're about to meet with them and get feedback, and we'll be updating that plan. And then we'll be implementing the plan as part of this outreach and starting to brief interested parties about the whole siting process, particularly folks that would be in the search area. So again, our public outreach and coordination is just starting now. That's task 4, and that's the last of the current tasks that are going on. Again, we're 2 months into this, and I can tell you we're well ahead of schedule. Things have gone well, which is great. Here's a map that's from our GIS work. I'm sorry, it's not real easy to see probably at this, but the red defines the search area that we have established for siting, for our search area for siting this facility. It's basically bounded by, of course, the county boundary to the north with Cowlitz, the Columbia River mostly to the west, a longitude 122 and 20 minutes on the east side here, somewhat arbitrary, but it certainly gets out well beyond Battleground and the current development in the East County. And then the south boundary is right along State Route 502 and its extension, which I think is Northeast 219th Street. So that's what this south red line is. So this central area is where we're currently intending to search for. CTR is about, I believe, about 5 miles south of this south line. If our search is not fruitful and we don't find enough sites in this area to satisfy, our sense of how broadly we need to look, we would then perhaps extend the boundary, particularly the southern boundary, but we don't want to get too close to CTR. That would put a very significant impact on that community to have 2 transfer stations close together, and it wouldn't be a kind of a cost-effective thing to do. So, so that's the search area. These are the other tasks, again, that really are not started, including task 5, which is part of phase 1. We'll be starting that as soon as we get through a sort of a sign off on these other documents we've produced and can start using that information that we've generated, including our citing criteria and search process. But then 6, 7, 8 is the SEPA environmental impact statement. That's a very long task. If I went back to the schedule, you'd probably see that that is a year or more in length, which would be typical for a transfer station project. A lot of it depends on the site you wind up with, or sites, I should say, because you would take 2 sites into the SEPA process and probably a no action alternative. So these are all the tasks that potentially have not started yet. Then lastly, the task 13 is our project management task. A lot of this is just day-to-day coordination within the team, keeping the county up to date on where we're at, invoicing, that sort of thing. But one of the tasks at the very end of 13 is subtask 1307. That's the support, our support for the formation of a siting review committee, an SRC. The county is currently well into pulling together a panel of subject matter experts from within the county who are really familiar with code requirements, traffic, all that sort of community development, anything that will impact the development, land use, all of that. There will be a committee whether it's 5 or 6 people, but they will be experts, and they're our initial sounding board for the work product that we're producing, to keep us out of difficulty, that we don't get off on a tangent somewhere that isn't going to work from a regulatory perspective within the county. So right now, getting the siting review committee established, which we expect to happen in the next week or two, and I don't know if Ken is still on the line, but he's been helping facilitate that. Getting that committee established is sort of the next pinch point in us moving ahead with the other tasks and getting into task 5, particularly, which is the broad area site screening. And that's the task where we actually go out using GIS as our primary tool to really identify all the possible sites that meet the siting criteria. So, sorry, I talked quite a long time there. I don't know if I'm exceeding my time allowance, but I guess, are there questions you have at this point? And again, we will definitely be back before you multiple times in going forward, particularly this year. I think you'll see a lot of us. Or are there
Joe,
questions?
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, first of all, thank you for the presentation there. Hey, I'm just curious. I saw your site, site potential map there. I was just curious, okay, I know that there's going to be a site committee put together. I'm just curious, did you have any input from anybody on those boundaries?
Well, we had discussions with the county, certainly, and
Okay.
we have met with a number of I think for another project we're working on, assisting the county with, we've met with the public works folks from all of the, of course, the people, the cities and the one town within the search area.
Okay. Okay.
But we're expecting, when we do have our outreach to interested parties, they will see where our boundaries are and we'll be able to comment on them. If they have some good input or want to question why we pick things, we will tell them. Again, I can tell you that you're sort of physically bounded north and west by limits of the county. To the east, it's sort of more a case of getting out into the forest and the mountains. And it's the south that's the critical one. And again, if we start looking too far south, we're going to be right on top of CTR.
Right.
And that doesn't make any sense unless we're replacing CTR.
Right. No. Well, and that's really what I was gonna point out is I'll give you a great example is okay, in theory, having a transfer station east of Battleground sounds like that'd be a reasonable something to consider. The only problem is if you've ever driven from I-5 to east of Battleground, that would be terrible. There's no roads out there,
Totally understood. And when you get to see the siting criteria, and again, we won't show that to you or to the other until we get it cleared with the siting review committee and the RSWIC. We intend to go to before the RSWIC. But when you see that, you will see that one of the key criteria is its accessibility to I-5. So that traffic, not just customer traffic, but the heavy truck can easily get back to I-5 and down to the port.
Right. So, well, and in fact, and please understand, this is just me.
Yeah, no, good question.
Bloviating, if you will, is I would say, my criteria would be no more than 3 miles from a major on-ramp to I-5.
We understand completely. And I think you'll see that reflected not only in the fact that one of the siting criteria is good access to I-5, but when we score that one for each site, you'll see that the closer to I-5 it gets, the higher score it will get for that particular criteria.
Sure.
Okay. I think we'll spend another meeting with you going through the whole siting criteria and the weighting and the scoring process, which is pretty complex and hopefully very objective, not subjective.
No, well, that let's just say this there, Carl, that puts me at ease because I saw that big line and I'm like, what the hell would you want to be out in ambush for? Okay. All right. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many other, there are 33 citing criteria in that citing memo that I mentioned, that 14 pager that you will see, and they have different weights in terms of their importance. I mean, one of the key ones is size. You know, if there's a lower limit on size where we just can't go lower and still get everything in. So, but the criteria weighting, as you will see, really emphasizes what's the most important of the many. So, other questions, folks?
Yeah, I had a quick question, Carl, on can you just give a high level, maybe overview of the facility programming and like what this facility, I'm assuming that means like, from what you were saying is what this facility is gonna have in it, like in terms
Yes.
of, can you just give a high
Yes,
level?
exactly. And we actually get in and we talk about, when you see the programming memo, there's a very detailed um, listing of the functions and actual sizes of things that it's a little hard to read on the site plan, but this site plan and the footprints of the various elements are very keyed into what we've established as the desirable size of things, the length of queuing. This length of queuing that we see here coming up to the scale going in, as well as the length of queuing going into the transfer building, all of that we've determined based on some initial assessments of traffic counts at peak hours. So this is not just some sort of arbitrary layout. We've actually tried to provide enough queuing length. And in many cases, as you can see, there's even double queuing to stack on the busiest periods. So you will see that there's a very detailed description of what needs to be at this facility. I mean, for example, here's a turnaround loop right here, because there will be customers that come in, have to go through the scale to pay for a certain commodity, but then want to go back through into the facility to go through to for example, a free area, which may be over here at the recycle area, or the MRW drop off, the HHW drop off here. So we have a turnaround loop, and all of that is defined in that program in a narrative format, but wherever we can have numbers and numerical descriptions, those you will see in that program. So again, the program is probably, I forget how many pages long. It's a lengthy document. We've done a lot of these, so it's very easy for us to really generate these pretty quickly because this sort of size transfer station based on the projected tonnage is very much what we'd call a two compactor station, where we've done stations of similar throughput. So it fits sort of a size that is well known to us and to the industry in general.
Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting with you all again at some future time and walking you through the facility program document, which you would need to probably get ahead of time to actually look through and think about what it's saying before we meet. Same with the citing memo, which has all the criteria weighting and scoring. Other questions?
All right, Carl, I got a few that were sent in by those not able to participate today, so I'm just gonna go over those.
Sure.
One of them is when determining the site, is the availability or accessibility of rail services taken into consideration?
That is something that is mentioned in the citing memo. I forget what the weighting is, if it is weighted in there. I know that has been brought up in the past. Given the location in the county, I'm not sure how relevant that is. I mean, given the location of the search area, we work on transfer stations that do have rail sidings. And I'm going to use Kitsap County. If you've ever been up there, they have their one and only large transfer station has a rail siding coming in. And that's great. If you have that, if you're fortunate enough to be on an active rail line, a commercial rail line, that is great. It really has a lot of of challenges, I have to tell you, because the sites we're working with don't really accommodate lengthy sidings. And you need sidings where you can stack a lot of rail cars, or you're going to wind up, as Kitsap County finds themselves, they can only get 6 rail cars into their transfer station at a time. And once they stack 12 containers on those 6 rail cars, they're done. And they have to call for a loco to come and switch. And that's very expensive and oftentimes not even available, depending on whose line you're on. So it isn't like a magic bullet just to say we're on a rail line. If you're going to be on a rail line and it's going to be truly utilitarian for you, you would need to have a significant amount of rail siding to make it an effective solution. So, and I'd be happy to talk about that more elsewhere or at another venue about that.
And Carl, I think also it should be noted that the MSA, I believe, directs the waste from the 4th transfer station, at least in the infancy stages, to be part of the barge system. And so I don't know that it can be built for rail to start with.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't a forever given that this will always go by barge. It depends on whose disposal site. Again, this is going to be here, in my thinking, over 100 years. Who knows where the waste is going to go? It may even be railed or trucked or barge to a energy from waste facility in the future. Who knows? So, you know, if it's possible to have rail connection, that would be great. There are not many sites that really are positioned where they can access an active rail line. Next,
Okay, thank you.
next question.
Next question I got here. The acreage being looked at for the site.
Well, I can tell you that the draft siting criteria, based on our analysis using the layouts that we've done for an ideal site where it's 100% developable, there are no wetlands, no steep slopes, we've concluded to get everything in a really functional way, like we showed you on that hypothetical site. We're talking about 13 acres. For our siting criteria, we have additionally established 9 acres as a bare minimum. So we don't want to just say, well, we want an ideal site, because we could easily rule out a number of otherwise good sites that could be made to work well enough. So we don't want to prematurely rule out sites by being too rigid in what we've set for a site area. But our ideal minimum area for a fully developable site would be 13 acres. That said, one of the other criteria that we've established is that we're not looking necessarily for just one parcel to get there. We're willing to aggregate parcels, and the parcels don't have to be all owned by one party. They can be owned by multiple parties. So we're trying to keep the door wide open and not rule out what would otherwise be a great site by aggregating different parcels together. Obviously, they have to be all together or contiguous.
Oh, absolutely. Then final question that was sent in. Will there be the future ability for this new transfer site for the county to purchase it?
This project our work is being funded exclusively by the county on the premise that it will be publicly owned.
Okay.
So one or more of the criteria actually talk about, first of all, that there is a willing seller or sellers for the property. And obviously, while the criteria isn't how much does it cost at this point, if we get down to sites, and let's say we're down to the five or whatever sites, at that point, there's going to have to be consideration given to whether there's a willing seller or sellers, whether there's a willing host community that is willing to have that facility in that location. And by host community, I mean not just the general public in that area, but also if it's an incorporated area. Again, this is being the good neighbor, that underlying criteria. We don't the county doesn't want to get into a position, I'm sure, where they're going through condemnation. You know, and particularly condemnation with an unwilling seller. That we've never done that. We have been in condemnations before for transfer station, but it's where the willing seller actually asked for it. So they wanted the court to determine what the fair price of the property was. You'll find a lot of interesting things in the citing criteria memo when you finally get to see it. And I hope they will be very satisfying to you, that they're really realistic and objective things that people can look at, and maybe they may not like them, but they can see that they're being objective about what we're doing, and that there's an underlying reason why those criteria are what they are and why they're weighted what they are. So hopefully you'll see all that and feel comfortable that the public's interest in this, and this is the public's facility, is really being protected and honored. So we've been through this too many times to where we've had a lot of public objection, you know, not just NIMBYism, but just general objection. So we bend over backwards to really try to make it a very fair and understandable process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other last chance for questions for Carl before we move on?
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you, Carl. Other business, moving on to that. Comprehensive solid waste management plan. So like was mentioned earlier by Sarah, ecology's courtesy review and resolution to adopt with the city and town councils. We're hoping to get that back. I believe you said May 9th.
May 9th is when we should get our, the ecology review will be completed.
Perfect. Update on bylaws. So been determined that we should form a subcommittee. So email went out to the group with the bylaws, with also the timeline on presenting those and reviewing and so forth and adopting. So if that's something that you are interested in, definitely please let Amanda and the county know. You have to join me. I think I'm default on it.
You are.
All right. Dirt Hugger Tour on May 15th. So Amanda will send out an updated calendar invite. Please accept if you plan on attending. So we have a head count. Also, can be doing some, carpooling or so forth, and
Yes.
potentially stopping for lunch somewhere.
Yes. And once we get the head count, we can send out an email to just that group to make sure we figure out logistics.
I unfortunately will not be able to make it.
So with that,
Hey, Jason.
yeah.
Yeah. Could we have a reminder? Dirt Hugger, whereabouts they at? I want to say Dufur, Oregon, right?
I was gonna say, so I can do a quick recap on.
Yeah.
So they're in the Dallasport, Washington, I believe now. We're on the Oregon side of the river and they moved, but it's down the gorge from here.
Oh, Dallasport. Yeah, I know Dallasport. Yep. Okay. Thank you. That's all I was wondering.
Okay, well, and just maybe for the good of the order, so that's where City of Vancouver's Richfield's residential organics mix goes to be processed, and our commercial food waste that's collected here in Clark County.
Perfect. One thing I would like to acknowledge, this is Kyle Potter's last meeting with us. He has faithfully served the commission for 6 years now, and time to focus on coaching soccer and all that good stuff.
Other volunteer activities are,
Moving from one thing to another.
yeah, taking precedent with my time, unfortunately, but
Oh, no, I think it's fortunate.
yeah. I enjoyed my time here, and thank you to all you guys who make all this happen. So,
Yeah. Kyle, you will be missed.
thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks, Julie. I see your message.
All right, so. Let's see what else going there. We already passed all that. All right, next meeting, August 7th, and for those that can join us, May 15th for the trip to Dirt Huggers. To go experience that. Anything else for the good of the order?
We did send out a notification that we are trying to fill the position, Kyle's position, Southwest County. So if you know anyone that's interested, it will be open until May 30th.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, then I call this meeting adjourned at 7:16 PM.
Nice and early.